as the 2025 draws to a close, it's the perfect time to reflect on Nigeria's economic journey over the year, the victories, the challenges, and the lessons learned. This year, the government rolled out key economic policies aimed at stabilizing the naira, boosting foreign investment, and supporting critical sectors like agriculture, energy, and infrastructure. Now, we've seen efforts to address inflation, attract private sector investments, and improve fiscal management, while on the private sector side, industries like fintech, manufacturing, and agribusiness have made notable strides, even as global economic pressures and domestic challenges tested growth and resilience. Now, to help us unpack all of this via Zoom is Steve Nwachukwu, an economist, researcher, and financial commentator. Now, Steve will guide us through this year's economic performance, explain how policies have shaped both business and household experiences, and give insights into what lessons 2025 holds for 2026. So whether you're a business owner, investor, or simply trying to understand how this year has affected everyday Nigerians, stay with us as we take a closer look at the economic highs and lows of 2025. Good morning and thank you for joining us, Mr. Steve.
Good morning and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, looking at the 2025 economy or Nigeria's economy in 2025, if you've had to summarize Nigeria's economy in 2025 in one sentence, what would you say it would be? Are we stabilizing, stagnating, or silently slipping from your very experienced point of view?
Okay, thank you. I would rather say it's quite turbulent in the sense that, on one hand, yes, we are well tested. The resilience of Nigerian economy is well tested, and we have proven that it's quite a very resilient economy. And on the other hand, you also say it is quite fragile in the sense that during these very months and weeks of turbulent economic indices, that suggests that things are not really like what they should. You will say it's fragile also because there are basic challenges, there are basic contradictions, there are things that are ought not to be, or things that ought to be that are not in their right places. So this is the nature of the Nigerian economy. It's resilient. No matter the turbulence, we survive because of the level of the resilience of Nigerian economy and those who plays in it itself. So it seems like, okay, well, in other clients, if you have such a tough, difficult moment, it's quite difficult for such businesses to actually survive. But here in Nigeria, with inflation above 33%, we started in January, we are all still kicking, we are all still enduring, we are all still participating in the economy. Good enough now, we have an inflation number around 14.45%. It's also a good news. So in all, I think you could say it's neither here nor near there. Yes, on one hand, the economy is resilient, while on the other hand, it's quite fragile in the sense that the cost of production, those enablers that could make a business environment conducive for businesses to strive are not there. They are off wanting. The cost of doing business is quite high. The MPR is still above 27%, and a couple of other economic decisions and policy of governments have not really shown that, yes, we need to make the business environment conducive for business communities to strive. So that is on that side of the fragility of the economy. Yes, we can also speak from the point of the government that we are seeing some level of solvency in the sense that yes, of course, you can also say the solvency is given the fact that there are a couple of policy decisions that government took that actually helped government to raise a lot of revenue and take away some of those burdens that have, caused some level of financial insolvency that we witness. And we also witness also on one hand why government is making efforts to have some reserve through policy decision like the reforms, the tax reforms, so that more revenues will come to the hands of government to apply in areas they are needed. We have also seen that there is this posture of government to also put themselves in a stressed conditions by the level and manner they are borrowing from. So it's neither here or there. But 2025 has been that very crucial year for us because of major policy decisions of government materialized in 2025, and it hasn't been that very good for the business in community.
All right. Now, Mr. Nwachukwu, we know that different sectors make up the make or break of an economy. Now, at this point, which sectors do you think genuinely drove growth in 2025, and which ones only appeared strong on paper?
Oh, it's quite a difficult question. Am I in position to tell you for truth? Yet we have numbers that suggest that, yes, we are having a very good, comfortable, progressive GDP numbers like we've had it since this year. We have seen the first quarter, second quarter, and the last quarter that took us to 3.98%. Speaking from the point of the statisticians or from the point of the MPS, the data made available, let's run with what they have. Which sectors are the most driving sectors? Which sectors have contributed most? Based on the last numbers, it's still the service sector. But if you take it away from the general GDP and look at it from the point of the revenues of the government, one would say rather the government have witnessed some shortfalls. Government have also witnessed some breakthroughs from the point of oil production. And there are also contradictions to these numbers, because if we go by what we had last year, production capacity around 1.2 to 1.3 million barrel per day. And now with the informations that we have from the NSA that we are doing more than 1.6 to 1.8 million barrel per day, one will suggest that yes, the oil sector have actually also added to the growth we witness in this 2025. But overall, it is the service sector that dominated with over 52% contribution and 5.3% GDP growth that drove the GDP number of 2025, which the last quarter of 3.98%. So it's still the service sector, but we needed something more from the industrial and the agri base, from the artisanal perspective and industrial perspective. So we need industrial sector to also drive such numbers so that we can see an even growth around the entire economy. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right.
Okay.
2025 as a year is tagged, as a year of sacrifice, adjustment by Nigerians. So from your professional view, what was it more of a recovery year or a survival year for Nigerians?
Recovery, no, it's far from being a recovery year. It's more of stabilization, more a stabilization from the point that we have seen some level of stabilization in the economy. From speaking from the numbers, although one will also query these numbers in the sense that are these numbers driven by emotional desires of these political leaders, or are they driven by real empirical data and variables that incubated these numbers, or are they just mere political aspiration, just like most of us also query, at which we recovered or at which we stabilized the inflation number from where we started in 2025 in January, around 33.6 or 33.8%. Now we are comfortably sitting at 14.45%. So when we query these very numbers in the sense that they are not reflective, they are not translating to the real data or the realities you and I can find in those markets and in those very places that can judge, yes, that these very variables or these numbers are really real in the sense of it. So if you're speaking from the point of stabilization, yes, one would say we have stabilized so far in most of these very key indicators. But every other in economists, if you have the best numbers, you have the best variables, you have the best indicators, they should translate to the living standard of the people. They should translate to those key development indexes. Life expectancy of the Nigerians should also reflect in that, and ease of doing business should also reflect in that, and even to the extent of your social welfare schemes should also show that yes, the numbers are speaking well, and not when you said yes, the economy have well stabilized, but you are still hitting the market to borrow, just like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made available the 2026 budget proposal, and we saw a whopping 23 trillion size of deficit. It also shows like the numbers you have pushed at, or the narrative that you've earlier pushed at, that shows or speaks to this very stabilization we've talked about, or that speaks to the solvency, is not really as it were. So this is where most of us are getting fatigue in trying to digest these very numbers. Some of us have also gotten to the point that we have started having analytical paralysis, in the sense that the numbers are not conflicted, the numbers are conflicting, the numbers are contradicting. So if you speak from the inflation number, or you speak from the GDP growth, or you speak from the solvency of the government, the revenues, recently we got a shocking news that the 41 trillion projection in the 2025 budget was cut short by 75%. They only realized about 10 trillion naira. And I think in September or thereabouts, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in one of his functions, this stated that he had surpassed his revenue. So this contradiction also queries these stabilizations that we talked about. So like I said again, I hope the numbers are not driven by the political, emotional wish of these very political leaders. Let it be driven by falsification, numbers that can stand the test of time. If it's falsified, it means that it will deceive an average investors, both local and foreign, that you have good details, you have good numbers. But if it's not so, will be the case when the chips are done. Right. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Nwachukwu, we have seen you've made mention of inflation, and inflation has eased slightly in 2025. And you made mention of discrepancies when it comes to figures in the economy, especially when it comes to the GDP. And with this ease up of inflation, yet food prices continue to stay high. And a lot of Nigerians would ask, why is food inflation so stubborn in Nigeria? And aside from that, many Nigerians hear macro recovery, yet feel poorer by the day. Could you elaborate and make us understand why everything, all the numbers are not translating to everyday lives of everyday Nigerians?
I think I will speak from this point. It is more of the confusing or contradicting variables adopted by the MBS that is showing, or that is making, or things look like, you have a better GDP number, you have a better inflation number, but it's not translating. It's not really speaking so. When you go to those places or the markets to pick up those items, the prices are still way high. The MBS ironically choose to weigh most of those variables, from the food to transportation to all those very the weighing indices to determine the inflation numbers, and they choose to use the wrong details, or to choose to use the wrong basics that resulted in those very when we had our rebasing and we saw the consumer price index dropping, by the fact that yes, the base year was also adjusted to I think 2023, which makes it much narrow. But the weighing indices, the components of the a basket of items that determine the inflations were wrongly adjusted when the food costs Nigerians a lot, and MBS actually reduced it, I think, from 47% to somewhere around 37%, and that also shows that they are insensitive to the fact that Nigerians 8 to 70% of their incomes are used in maintaining their access by buying food, and even the housing was also affected. Transportation, we can see how much it costs us to move about in this nation, given the fact that deregulation was effected and fuel subsidy was also effected, and we no longer enjoy those subsidies from the petroleum product, and we saw the price of fuel to where it is today, and that also have actually taken a lot from our pocket in transportation. So the basket of items was also increased from somewhere around 700 to over 1,000, weighing it more down. So when you see some adjustments in most of these very numbers, it's really not translating in what those prices. So I think it's from that perspective one can actually say, yes, this is why the numbers are coming down from the inflation figure from the Bureau of Statistics, but in realities, they are not really reflective. The prices of these goods and services are way high what you find in the market against what the MBS is actually giving at. Thank you.
Looking at the drop in inflation, I don't want to say it's magic. I mean, the more you see, the less you understand. But Nigerians are still confused as to how, we can have these inflations being dropped. But in reality, we're not seeing it. And this brings us to government policies. Now, these policies were meant to stabilize prices over time. At what point should Nigerians realistically expect to feel relief and not just hear these projections?
Yes, speaking from the policy wise, most of these very policy decisions, or most of these numbers, or these directives, waivers, or what have you, that government troll around to guide the economy, some have short-term, middle-term, and long-term manifestation or materialization in the economy. So a good number of them will materialize, will start reflecting in the economy immediately in a short term, and some will take some time to gradually water down or trickle down to the economy. So depending which of these very policies, a good number of them has been out there. Just like we saw the policy around deregulation, where we totally saw the fuel subsidy removal, you saw the effect in the economy right away. So such policies will have a ripple effect as direct, as short, as quick as it takes. We witnessed in 2025 or 2024 when that decision was taken. So I don't know for which of these very policies you want me to speak at that actually needed to translate to the economy. The tax reform policy of the government, yes, some of them have kickstarted, but January is the main, I think 80 to 70% of such components of that very policy will take effect, and you'll start reflecting in the books and the financial statements of both individuals and corporate institutions will start making provisions to adhere to the provisions of such acts. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Nwachukwu, let us look at the Naira, foreign exchange and monetary policy. It is very, very important when it comes to a weak or a strong economy. Now, at this point, do you think that the Central Bank of Nigeria prioritized investor confidence over citizens' welfare in 2025?
Uh, Going by the variables available with the CBN and their policy posture, given the fact that we still have a very hawkish posture by the CBN, the inflation have abated to 14.45%. And it also suggests that CBN is totally in a disagreement with the MBS number of inflation of 14.45%, having placed or kept the MPR, the monetary policy rate, at 27%. You said a lot of money is in circulation. You are trying to control inflation. Oh, Mr. Governor, the inflation is down 14%. Why do you still keep the MPR at 27%? It simply means that CBN disagrees. CBN is in doubt of the MPS inflation details or numbers. So it means that CBN have not actually come to terms or agree with the MPS that our inflation have really dropped to 14.4%. So I think it calls back to this very voodoo nature of these very practices or conduct by these agencies of government. On one hand, you staffing, you make sure that you tighten up the system. You took the MPR to 27%. And now you give reasons that you wanted to battle inflation. Inflation is done, and you're still adamant. You still do not agree that inflation is done to lower than this very MPR number, which have actually dealt with a lot of businesses. So a lot of businesses have become insolvent because of this high cost of borrowing. A lot of businesses or a lot of ideas died from the start, given the fact that these very entrepreneurs and individuals cannot access loans because of the exorbitant nature of the coupon rate, the interest rate. A couple of institutions or financial institutions are going well above 40-45% interest rates. And average of them, average individuals and entrepreneurs who have beautiful ideas to access such funds from the banks are not really assessing because of this very exorbitant or hawkish nature of the CBN. Having an MPR above 27% is quite very hard for the business communities to strive. Then from the policy-wise, government have not also shown some level of empathy and sincerity, in the sense that you've had a lot of revenue and you should fill the gap because our credit to GDP is around 14%. We needed a credit to GDP to support the economy well above 25%, but we are still sitting around 14%. In fact, it has even been worsened by this very high regime of interest rate regime, over 27%, and that has affected businesses. So we needed government intervention from those basic national interventionist institutions like the Bank of Agriculture, Bank of Industry, coming to fill the gap, because I still know that they are running a single-digit interest rate regime. So government needed to recapitalize such institutions well above 10 trillion, 5 trillion, to give them a larger function in the economy, to accommodate more Nigerians and more entrepreneurs, more beautiful ideas that needed to be funded, but they cannot find such opportunities with the commercial institutions. So that has been the fate of the business community. Right. High interest rate regime is not healthy.
All right, Mr. Nwachukwu, now from your own expertise, what would you think would happen if Nigeria realistically, tried to defend the Naira more aggressively? How would that reflect on the economy?
Yes, of course, there's every reason to defend the Naira, but defend it from the point of structural policy decisions of government and the rest. That is only where you can have an effective and efficient and a strong and resilient naira against other major currencies of the world. So it shouldn't come from this very paper point of view of the CBN throwing dollars around to defend naira. No, defend the naira from the structural adjustments in the economy. Take, for instance, we are spending a lot of forex in importation of petroleum products. How do you strengthen naira from that point of view? We are lucky we have functional refinery operated by the Dangote industry. So what is the issues around supply of crude oil? What is the issues of around the policy around naira to crude naira to crude that CBN or the federal government earlier introduced and now abandoned it, that could have helped structurally to save those billions of dollars that have been expended in importation of petroleum products. So our government should see issues from that point of view. When you strengthen, when you make such adjustments that gives room for those local players where you have comparative advantage to supply whatever Nigeria needed, and it will help to caution those very force or demands that is really biting hard on CBN to maintain the naira, not from the point of throwing a few hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars around, and you see some level of a sense of stability, while in the real sense, the pressure is still there. So you can abet the pressure from these very structural decisions. You go into agriculture, you incentivize these very processes and make sure that this very line of items that Nigeria imports that put pressure on naira is reduced. You go into industrial areas, you find from the commerce and industry ministries and from the foreign affairs how you can get into how you can get into some of these very bilaterals that can help Nigeria substitute most of these very things that we import. I think it's quite important that we see things from this very perspective that will help us make sure that these things are done, not from this very window dressing system. Thank you.
Mr. Nwachukwu, quickly, time is against us. Now, looking ahead as we head into 2026, what economic risk should Nigerians be most worried about? And then also, what key economic priorities should the government and also the private sector focus on in 2026?
I think government should avoid inconsistency in government policy decision. Government should be well defined. Government should make sure that the stabilization we keep talking about is maintained. Stabilization from the point of the forex exchange, stabilization from the posture of government in their spending. We have seen the 2026 budget proposal is quite ambitious, overtly ambitious, and government need to cut down on this very ambitions and focus and direct funds and investment in a targeted area that could trigger the genuine and the transparent and organic growth that we needed as translated in our GDP. Then on the side of the private sector, they should be mindful of the economic environment, which I'm sure every private sector player understands the risks that is here with us. So one should be very careful. The volatility we have witnessed in the exchange rate have abated. That's where I speak about the stabilization. We need to see government also make sure that the exchange comes down to even around 1,000 to 900 per US dollar. So these are the expectations of Nigerians, and business environment need also to be conducive. Government should also roll out some incentive programs that could actually support the private sector. And private sector should be mindful of the fact that, yes, we have a new tax law. All of us have been paying tax, but there are few adjustments that may bring more people into the tax net. The federal government target for the tax is around 20% to tax net of 20%. Currently, we are around 10 to 11%. So it's a good one that we also get more people into the tax net. But overall, government should be mindful of their posture in their spending. Most of those budget outline terms, most of those ambitions that are totally like white elephant projects needs to be cut off. I think that's the hope of Nigerians. We still need to live in the fragility, in the volatility of the economy we have witnessed in 2024 and 2025. So there should be a split over of such development in 2026. We are not expecting any of these policy decisions of government to materialize or to abet or to, take us to a single-digit inflation number or take us to the single-digit monetary policy rate, or to see the cost of living and cost of things abate. But we expect government to be decisive. We also expect policy decisions to be targeted so that most of these very prices will abate a bit. That's my wish.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Steve Nwachukwu, for highlighting the highs and lows of Nigeria's economy in 2025. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Always my pleasure. Thank you.